this week, we get to kick it with the man Miles Francis. Miles Francis is a Texas comedian, also a purveyor of a Simpsons podcast. So we know he's got content to talk about on that thing for the next 2 centuries. Because, man, The Simpsons has been running since I was in kindergarten.
Yeah.
God, I'm so old. I'm actually the kid that got The Simpsons banned from my school system because I told our assistant principal in kindergarten to eat my shorts. Not for any specific reason. I just walked up to him and was like, hey, what's up? Eat my shorts. And he was like,
that can't be right.
We can't allow this shit. And he was like, what the fuck is that? I'm like, I don't know, I saw it on some kid's shirt. And he was like, what kid? I was like, that kid. You know, this is before I learned snitches get stitches. And then
Matashi 6'9" over here.
I don't even want to start talking about that fucking punk ass, man. Like, how do people even defend that fucking rainbow colored motherfucker? Fuck that dude. Sorry. Well, anyway,
I'm out of the loop on that one.
I've ranted enough over the last fucking month. I want at least the next month to be chill and enjoyable. So anyway, Miles Francis,
go
ahead and give the listeners of the adventure a little brief synopsis about yourself.
Sure, man. I mean, you covered the most interesting parts. I'm a stand-up comedian here in Dallas, Texas. And I have been doing a Simpsons podcast now for the last 4 years. We're a little over 200 episodes deep. Every single week we review a episode of The Simpsons in chronological order, and it has been a wild ride because, I mean, like, I think we might be exactly the same age because The Simpsons came out when I was in kindergarten as well. It was like a part of my entire comedic upbringing, essentially. Like, it's huge influence on my comedy in general, and I find that pretty much everybody within a like pretty good age range, like give or take from our us, kind of has the same thing. Like, as I talk to other comedians around and other podcasters, like if I bring up The Simpsons, they're like, oh my god, I love The Simpsons, or at least I used to love The Simpsons, both of which are a very common response that I get whenever I talk to other comedians.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great show. I actually wasn't allowed to watch it for a long time. Surprise. Yeah, I don't know why my mom did that, but, I guess, I don't know, she probably had some fucking reason. But I was allowed to read, like, my reintroduction to The Simpsons, because, I mean, I did, would watch it whenever nobody was around or whatever every now and then. But you remember the magazine? It was like a cartoon comic magazine thing.
The comic books that they did?
Yeah. Well,
100%.
yeah, and they had, like, all the cool articles and shit in it. Like, the first one I got, my mom bought it for me, and she regretted the fuck out of it because it was the first one that they did where, like, they'd had Bart Simpson do a bunch of pranks, like, this is how you do this prank. And I was short sheeting my parents' bed for like 3 years after that. They'd go to sleep at night, and they're like, what the fuck? And I got people the quarter thing. That's where I learned the quarter trick, where you take the graphite pencil and you do it around the outside. Like, hey, man, I bet you can't roll it straight down the middle of your face. And people
I remember that, dude. It was almost like Bill Nye the Science Guy, but, like, instead of being, like, useful science, it was, like, shit that you could do to piss off your friends.
Oh, it's so awesome. And then I think that was like a year or two after the kindergarten debacle. But man, this show was awesome, and it got a lot of hate, which was really weird. Like I said, my parents didn't let me watch The Simpsons, but I could watch Married with Children.
See, that is a weird line to draw there, which I think that's a fantastic sitcom. I love Married with Children.
Oh,
by
yeah.
all means, it's really good. But definitely in terms of pushing the limits, it's not even close. But I think that The Simpsons at the time, just because it was it was the only cartoon back then. Like, it wasn't like today where we have Adult Swim and all of these, Rick and Morty, Family Guy, all of these cartoons that are aimed at an adult audience. Back then, it was kind of crossing this, like, sacred threshold where it's like, but cartoons are for kids, and you're putting adult-themed humor into a kid's format, and, like, it blew people's mind back then, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, it was basically an entire show about how the nuclear family was absolutely fucking ridiculous. And that
Yeah,
was the American model. They're still trying to push the nuclear family as the American model. And it's like, we
and
left
the
that a
Simpsons are,
long time ago.
yeah, that's so outdated. But like, that's the thing is, I mean, the Simpsons has kind of been a roller coaster in terms of quality of programming. And I've had, Simpsons writers on the show, my podcast, that have like told me that they know. It's like, dude, we know that you can't make 30 consistent years and all of it's going to be great. Like, we've had some low spots, we get it. But like, they're still to this day trying to do exactly what you said, where it's like kind of lampooning just the American culture that we take so sacredly.
Right.
And they do it really well. And I mean, think of the shows that it spawned, like South Park and American Dad, and just that
Legendary.
whole plethora
Mm-hmm.
of family cartoons. Bob's Burgers, like
Family Guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all kind of had that Simpsons as their like pioneers who kind of blazed the trail for them. And like a lot of the shows you just named have done crossovers now with the Simpsons in one way or the other. Like
Oh yeah.
the Griffin family from Family Guy has actually met the Simpsons on like the show. Like they had a crossover event. I want to say Bob's Burgers did one of the opening sequences, like the couch gags and everything. They
Yeah.
actually
Didn't
did
South
one with
Park, too?
Bob's. What's that?
Didn't South Park do one too?
Dude, South Park has like the ultimate Simpsons
Yeah.
cross. It's not even really a crossover as much as it is they spoof the Simpsons with an episode called Simpsons Did It. And
Yeah.
literally the whole episode was about how there is no original comedy anymore or original ideas because the Simpsons have done everything. So no matter what you pitch, no matter what you do, no matter what you try, you're just going to get blamed for ripping off the Simpsons.
Exactly. I mean, it's the longest running show, like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sitcom?
Well,
Or animated series, definitely.
it's the
I believe
longest.
it just passed Gunsmoke, and it's now the longest episodic series, or it's the longest something or other. It just like last
Yeah.
year passed Gunsmoke.
I think the only
Yeah,
thing
it's
that's got it is
it's
the Tonight
I,
Show or something like that.
I think the only thing that it
Saturday Night
hasn't.
Live too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the only thing this the record The Simpsons hasn't broken is the longest show in syndication. And that's just
Could be
gonna
that
take
too, yeah.
like 20 or 30 more fucking years.
Yeah,
just period.
it's just a matter of time.
Yeah,
And
and to have outlasted Gunsmoke, I grew up on that fucking show. Like they were still making that show whenever I was a kid. That shit started in the black and white era.
see, I'll be honest, I don't really have a lot of knowledge of Gunsmoke. That was not something that ever caught my eye. So like when they hit that milestone, I was kind of like, who?
But yeah, I
But-
mean, I'm originally from West Virginia, so my intro to television was like Gunsmoke and the Virginian and Hee Haw and Grand Ole Opry and
Dukes
like
of
the
Hazzard.
occasional like weird thing, like what was that? There was a show. I think it was the Jeffersons that my mama was super into, which is really weird because she's a mama. But it was something like that I was just like, I don't understand why you're watching this. Like I hear racial slurs come out of you. Okay.
Oh, I gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, what the fuck? And like as a little
You're a
kid,
walking
I didn't really.
contradiction, Grandma.
Well, like I look back, and it didn't mean anything back then because I was little. But looking back, I was like, wow, that's so weird. God, but I watched the Golden Girls. Like I'm a huge Golden Girls fan because I grew
That's
up
still a
with
great
Golden
show,
Girls.
dude.
Dude, I love Golden Girls,
yeah.
man. Like, and then after the '80s was over, and the 90s kind of grunge thing happened, and they MTV was out and they started doing their thing. Like TV just went nuts. Now it sucks a lot for the most
But like
part.
that was ideal for me as a kid because like I was an only child, so a lot of times like I still am for what it's worth. I don't know why I said was, but growing up then, like the TV was like the best friend a lot of times. Like if there's no one else around, it's like, well, at least I have Nickelodeon. And like we're talking about like an age when you mentioned the blow up of like MTV. It wasn't MTV was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, that was when it like actually played music, which was cool. But like TV in general was going through like a kind of a revolution, if you will. Like I think it was like a big boom of like cable and satellite dishes going up, and like suddenly you have like 100 channels to choose from. And back then you didn't have the DVR yet, so you just had like this overload of like, all right, how am I going to cram in as much content as possible on this fine Saturday afternoon?
Right. And it was all because of Fox and people like The Simpsons and Married with Children. Because Fox, like a lot of people don't remember, Fox used to be the bastard of the TV world, like they were the ones that put out all the shit that nobody wanted to put out because it was way too risque, like.
Yeah, they had like an edge to them at the time.
Yeah, which is really funny looking back. Because now they're the fair and balanced news source of America.
Well, more than anything, they just want to do whatever they can to not piss off the NFL.
Right.
Yeah. And, but even like the kids stuff, like you brought up Nickelodeon, like for a long time, Nick was just stuff like Hey Dude and Salute Your Shorts.
Salute Your Shorts. Yeah.
I love Salute Your Shorts. I'm like Double Dare with Mark Summers and like.
Dude, I got to meet him recently. I got to meet Mark Summers. Yeah. A buddy of mine, he's an author named Matthew Klickstein. He's a filmmaker as well. He does all sorts of shit. But he actually made a documentary about Mark Summers. It's called On Your Mark. It's a fantastic film. Highly recommend you check it out if you're a fan of him. It tells his like life story and stuff. But I got to go to the premiere of that documentary at the Alamo Drafthouse in Austin.
Nice.
And Mark Summers was actually there. This was all pre-COVID, so like there's actually like Double Dare games going on. Like they did a thing where they slimed some people, and he did a Q&A, and like he was just super, like honestly one of like the chillest dudes ever. Like we were on like a time limit, but the theater is like, we don't care, and he's like, I don't care either. I'll answer all your questions. Like it was cool.
That's awesome.
That's pretty
awesome. Last time I was at the Alamo Drafthouse, I saw The Matrix.
No joke.
Yeah. It was amazing.
What a relevant movie for 2020.
It's getting to the point where it's like, fucking, I need a break from all of this shit. How the fuck? There's nowhere you can go. I realize there is, though. And I'm actually building the whole bit around this, but it's like, like if you need a vacation and you don't have kids, a cult is like the perfect thing for you. Like you get cut off from the outside world. There's nothing else. You know what I mean? Like I almost seriously.
You're not going to find a more supportive environment.
Exactly. Right. And the only problem is like for me, I've got 2 kids. I don't want to caress my kids. So like I can't do that. But dude, if you're a single individual who just needs, a break for a while and some people to make you feel good about yourself and, maybe an orgy or 4, like the fucking cult is perfect.
Dude, and honestly, I'm feeling like a lot of people are going to be fine with putting up with a lot of nonsense as long as those orgies keep happening.
Right.
Like that's the important part that they need to market.
Yeah, and you're quarantined from the rest of the world so you don't have to worry about like COVID.
When you leave the cult, people will still want to quarantine themselves from you because of how weird you are. So like you've got that added bonus.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not like saying conform. I'm just like as a vacation, like when you go to, Germany, you do German things. If you go to the UK, you do UK things. So it's like, yeah, I'll pretend to be a Krishna for a little while and have a good time. Like, hell, Hare Krishnas make great cookies. Don't know if you ever tried them, but they used to hand them out all over the place, man. They're pretty cool people.
Those cults seem like cool people on like from like a layer, like a surface layer. It's not till you get into like that inner sanctum that you're like, oh yeah, maybe this isn't the right place for me. But like from a vacation standpoint, you're totally right, because you're just seeing that like base floor type layer of cult stuff, and that's where all the cool stuff happens.
You dip your toe into the insanity. That's where all the good stuff is, where they're all supportive and not trying to.
A lot of people tell you they love you and like they want you to like be part of the family.
All kinds of free drugs, just crazy times going. It's
and then like you don't even notice that you're like plowing a field at 6 a.m. Like you just know it's for the overall better good.
And then 2-3 weeks.
All your modern comforts and conveniences.
Yeah, for a
man.
couple of weeks, that's not bad, man. Like you gotta sometimes you just gotta get back to the roots, to the dirt, you know.
I
But
just Googled still active cults that you can join.
oh, I'm sure there's fucking plenty of them.
There's fucking good ones right here. It's crazy. I'm not even going to talk about them.
There's there's
Just
this
know that if you Google them, you'll be like wowed.
Wow.
well, like there's this thing I just heard about on Mike Tyson's podcast, with hot boxing, which is
Yeah.
really
Podcast.
yeah, dude, it's so good. Oh my god, this is so good. I love Mike so much. He just had Wiz Khalifa on, and they were talking about like these. Not this necessarily a cult, but I think it's a cult. It feels like a cult. Like the people who think that you can live just breathing. Like you don't have to drink water, you don't have to drink food or eat food. Like you just breathe and sustain yourself from that. And I'm
What's
like,
the longest like running member of that cult? Like
I
I
don't
feel
know.
like they're changing leaders every 2 to 3 weeks,
I
probably.
literally just heard about this last night while I was at work because I work overnight like a fucking crazy person.
You know, my
And I
co-host on
was
my podcast, Richie the Whiz Kid, he also works nights, and that makes scheduling conflicts like a crazy fun time sometimes. But yeah, you're
Sure.
honestly, I get it, dude. I get the appeal of the night job.
well, it's easier for me because I don't feel as bad whenever I'm like at my wife. I'm like, hey, I'm going to a show. She's like, what time are you going to be back? I'm like, I don't know. it's
Mm,
it's 2.5 hours away. Uh, I just did one in Akron 2 weeks ago,
Oh, nice.
and you know, it's fucking. I didn't get home till like 2:30 in the fucking morning. Like that's why I work at night. Really,
That's the comedy life, man.
man, it's beautiful. I'm working on getting a gig booked in Fort Wayne right now. It's like a 3-hour drive
Interesting.
from here.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure I know I'm pretty sure I know a comedian from Fort Wayne, Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. I will have to ask her if I'm remembering right next time I see her.
there's a
Her name's
lot.
Mana, for what it's worth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then
She's local to Texas now.
all right. Hey, Texas has to be a fun place to do comedy. I mean, you guys got Austin. I know you're up in the DFW area, but I mean, there's a pretty vibrant scene down there.
Again, everything before the pandemic, before COVID, basically, it was like really good. I mean, like it was really, really good. If you were grinding and really hustling, if you're in the DFW area, you could hit, I want to say it was like 16 to 18 mics per week if you were willing to
damn.
drive a lot and be out like all night, every night. But like, even if you weren't hitting all of them, I mean, like I was comfortably hitting 12 mics a week, no problem. And like that was great. There's a lot of clubs, a lot of bars that were all booking shows, a lot of places and people just putting on independent shows. We have a lot of like breweries up here, which
Right.
I don't know if that's the same where you're from, but
Yeah.
we do tons of breweries in Texas, and like a lot of those places will try to put on like little weekend events, things of that nature. So you know, if we're doing this like 4 months ago, I would say that it was thriving. Now it's an overpopulated cesspool of everybody, you know, jumping at whatever scraps we can get. But you know, that's comedy, man.
Yeah, man. Ohio's
More
weird
competition.
because we're not like most of the comedians are still like, yeah, I don't wanna, and I'm just like, I don't fucking care.
See, I've definitely been quarantined. I've only been doing like outdoor shows and places that have done like really heavy, like, you know, procedures to try to keep everyone safe. There have been a few
Mhm.
places that, I mean, honestly, Texas has been like the Wild West down here. Like half the people don't believe in masks. There's no like ordinance to wear them. Social distancing is a joke. Like
Oh yeah.
it's crazy down here, man.
Well,
They put
Texas is
mask
a
ordinance here, so
yeah.
to put the mask
Texas
up.
is wild because I mean you're like the only state that can legally secede from the union. Uh, Ohio's got an interesting thing going on with this whole mask shit.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
They're just gonna change the name of our city. It's no big deal.
I mean, Flavortown is a good name for Columbus, but we
Oh,
should.
are you guys named after Christopher Columbus, and they're
Yeah.
talking about changing the name of
No,
your town?
Oh yes,
yeah.
yes.
Interesting.
They
Is
just
this
Yeah.
have
already?
no
Is this
statues.
officially happening, or is it just like being talked about?
Let's just say, like, there's no statues of Christopher Columbus left anywhere in the city.
Yeah, they've torn all that
Interesting.
down. I don't know. I mean, it
Don't
could happen.
understand the logistics behind changing the name of a fucking city. Do you realize how many manhole covers we got here?
So I just think that's interesting, just because you see so much of this like online and whatnot, but you two are actually like living in a place where that's occurring. That's fascinating.
I mean, in some context, I get it. He was
Yeah.
kind of a piece of shit. But
Yeah.
why would you
How
want to
many
sell
people live in places named after pieces of shit?
a lot of us?
A fucking fuck ton of us, because we're in a country populated by dudes who are pieces of shit back in the 1700s.
Well, I mean, like
What are
the
you
whole
gonna do?
world's kind of like that, though.
I don't think that's exclusive to the 16 and 1700s for what
Yeah,
it's
no, I
worth.
think we've carried. See, like the thing is it's one thing to it. I don't think people have a problem with being like Christopher Columbus had the nuts to sail across fucking thousands of miles or whatever of ocean in some rickety ass wood boat and trying to explore. Like, I mean, he was kind of a badass dude, but he's also a piece of shit. But you never heard about the piece of shit part. Like,
No.
And I'll
what
be
I'm
honest,
saying?
I still to this day really know very little about him as a individual at all. Like he is a piece of shit. Fuck him. And fuck
He's
all
a
his
psychopath,
statues. I
dude.
don't care. But like, I
The
don't
guy
know anything
crushed.
about him is the truth.
He fucking
I'm like
killed
super
babies, dude. It
bad
was
both
fucked
with
up.
history and geography. Like it's like
Yeah.
embarrassing, like off the like charts, literally sometimes.
That's cool. I'm shitty at accounting, so everybody's
Yeah.
got their forte, right?
Well, it's weird, like in history, like a lot of the people who have created large amounts of change in the world have basically been also huge pieces of shit. I mean, just you look at, you can go all the way back to Greeks, and it's like you got Aristotle and Socrates and all those guys loved fucking little boys. Like,
Yikes.
okay, that's not great. But in the context of the times, I guess it was
Yeah.
acceptable back then. Supposedly the
Was.
theory is it was their version of pleasure, and that's why it's carried on into the Middle East as like somewhat of a cultural thing for them, apparently. Or so the whatever says, so hard to believe half of anything you hear or read anymore because you're just
Yeah.
like,
The truth is definitely like a weapon that is like used against all of us, because I agree, we are overwhelmed as a society with essentially too much information that is just wildly inaccurate. But it's almost like, how do you blame people for believing all sorts of wild shit just because there's so much information being pumped at us all the time?
Correct.
yeah.
I mean,
And not
how are you
only
supposed to
that,
be in the loop? But
now that we're all so connected and we're all doing all this, conversating, and especially once the COVID happened and people were like, I'm locked in the fucking house, see what kind of weird shit I could find. And then they start finding weird shit and they're like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And then like it got so bad that the federal government had to be like, all right, yes, there are UFOs. We are totally looking into this. Chill the fuck out. This stuff really existed. And everybody was like, whoa, wait, what?
See, everyone I
You
knew is like, duh, like, yeah, we already knew
yeah.
that shit. Like, this is not a
Well,
surprise. Like,
that's the thing is like the government is now being forced to like admit all of this shit, and we're just like, okay, wait a minute, hold on. So you've been lying about this shit for. We now have like more physical proof that our modern government is full of more horse shit than a horse. That we're like, all right, what else? What else? What else? What else? Like Pizzagate. Like, yeah, that sounds completely reasonable.
see, so it's so funny that you brought that up, just because I literally have been debating another comic friend of mine about the whole Pizzagate thing. Like, I will say flat out, I have zero doubt whatsoever that like there is some disgusting, very wealthy people in politics and Hollywood and probably other facets of society, and they have a sick obsession with pedophilia. But like,
Yeah.
I don't believe that there is any connection to like coding at a pizza place. Like, I don't feel like if you're so wealthy that like you like can, if you have like enough money that you can literally do these horrendous, awful acts and like pay people to cover it up. Like, you don't need the fucking pizza dude, man. Like, you don't have to order like a pepperoni, you know, like extra sausage or anything like that to like code them that you're ordering a child. Like, I don't know. Like, there are aspects of that that I think are just like wild, like the symbology and all of that stuff. I'm just like, no, dude, these are just sick individuals with a lot of money that maybe occasionally get a slice of pizza while they're in New York.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Like they don't. Yeah, that's what like. I don't think when these conspiracy theories start, A, it's usually spread amongst some of the dumbest sons of bitches on the planet. But two,
Right.
like they have no concept of how much money these motherfuckers actually have. Like
it's disgusting, dude. Like it's so
insane.
disproportionate. Like you can't
Yeah.
even fathom it.
They don't even know how much money they have. That's
No.
like,
I mean, they can literally like spend your like year. I mean, they could just spend your life basically, like everything you're going to spend in your life on like a weekly basis for an ending amount of time. Like it's ridiculous. It's unfathomable.
that's what the conspiracy theory is something to distract you from that fact right there. Like this Pizzagate is just a distraction from
the
these
fact that
have so much more than everybody else.
In some cases, that would be what like all conspiracies are. Then like just like a distraction from like the elite. I could, if we want to talk about that, I can get on board with that all day long. Yes, I do believe that we are being distracted daily by the like just disproportionate wealth that we share or that we don't share. We don't get our share of in the society.
And the media is what is unfortunately being used to use it. Like I know a guy who was a journalism student. He's not a journalist, but he went to college for journalism. And we got into this argument, you know, about how like the media, especially the major news channels, all of them are used to manipulate the American people. And he was like, no, they're just journalists. They're just journalists. And I'm like, no. It's one thing to be like, hey, look, this is my opinion about this guy stabbing this chick in the face, or this is my opinion about Bill Clinton stabbing Monica Lewinsky in the face, or this is this news story that broke in New York where a dude was running around spraying everybody in the face with Cool Whip, going Cool Whip, you know? Like those are two are still news stories, but they're interjected with opinion, but you're made to be aware of what that individual's opinion is. Now the media has been allowed to basically say, well, we're just entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like wrestling, dude. It's like how Vince McMahon tried to get out of being liable for the steroid scandal. He's like, we're not sports. We're sports entertainment. And it's the same shit. It's like, we're not news. We're not journalism.
Wrestlers.
Right. But the problem is those fucking journalists that we have are still trying to pass this shit off as news. And if you've got even half of your fucking brain working, you can tell the difference. Because if you look at a headline on CNN, you look at a headline on, Fox, and then you go to YouTube, and for example, and you do a decent cross section of independent news journalists, YouTube's the only place where you're going to hear a relative pure form of the story.
Because independent journalism basically
exactly
is going to be what you
look at you look at the major stuff, and you can literally have a story about a guy walking a dog through a park, and because he's wearing a red hat, and that's the only thing that you see is this old dude wearing a red hat walking a dog through a park. CNN would say Trump supporter is walking his vicious animal through an all-black park trying to incite violence, and you'd have Fox, on the other hand, saying, look at these people who are trying to dead name or whatever the fuck this poor old man, blah, 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 these crazy liberal people, like, they're taking that insanely small and massively insane portion of our country, expanding it into this massive fucking thing, making everybody think that that's mostly what is going on, and then basically saying, look, because all this shit is happening, you guys have to stop it because of this. This is what we have to do. It's like,
well, and you get like this concept too that forces that narrative forces this idea that you have to pick a team, red, blue, Democrat,
Right.
Republican, conservative, liberal, whatever, which is just such bullshit because I mean, most people I know do not fall into either traditional party 100%, but they like make you feel like you have to be on one side or the other. And then both sides essentially discredit the other. So then everything is, I hate quote unquote fake news. But like I mean, like no one knows what to believe from any source ever. And then you get the people online. It's like, well, you shouldn't post up or that you shouldn't have an opinion unless you've, verified all your sources. Like to some extent, I get that point, but like who has time these days to go through like 17 sources to be like, wait a second, this guy here used to work for this network and he's trying to disparage them now because of a bitter breakup that they had where he slept with his ex-wife. And it's just like, good Lord, man. Like, I don't have time for that.
yeah, most of that shit doesn't even matter anyway.
Well, it's called talking points too. Like both sides put out their own set of talking points that they're going to go through that day and how they're going to run the news cycle unless some shit goes down,
And yeah, it all comes back to at the end of the day, they don't care about their job is not to inform you. Their job is to have you stick around through the commercials.
Right.
Yeah, right. It's become all about the money. Like a really good example of this is God, I love this woman's name. When Kayleigh McEnany.
Oh, yeah. The
I
lady
fucking love this woman's name. It's so awesome. But she had that whole speech about like the science in schools and all that shit and going
can't
back.
let science get in the way of our kids'
right.
education.
That was the headline, right? But if you listen
Back
to
up.
what she said, like the entire fucking clip, like it's not entirely inaccurate. Like you can't let science stop you from reopening the schools because you can't, because
I would wildly disagree with that, to be completely honest.
because the science says the schools can be reopened. The problem is if you listen to the schools, they don't have the fucking money to do it the way the science says you have to fucking do it.
They're already stretched. Teachers, every teacher I've ever known has been stretched to their limit, to their budget, and spent their own cash to like do a little bit extra for their kids. So yeah, it's insane.
Although what she said was still bullshit, the headlines that it spawned were even more bullshit because they could have just reported the fact that she's like, no, the schools are totally capable of doing this. Science says the schools can do it. We can make it work. We can stop the spread and allow them to be around each other. What she left out is every school needs at least, like $15 more million a year to be able to implement this shit the right way. Because you're going to have double the classrooms, creating a smaller classroom size. You're going to have to segregate each classroom from the time they walk on that fucking bus until the time they get back off that bus. You know what I mean?
Not to mention all the cleaning in between and the fact that you're also going to have people trying to do online schooling, which is like an extra step if you're not doing it all or none. But I think I'm so glad I'm not a parent right now for what it's worth. Like this would be like as far as like decisions you've ever had to make as a parent, I feel for each and every one of you out there. I saw a meme that I think, like, I hate to say that because like so many people use memes for like, science, which is totally not the case. But I did see a meme that I do really feel like perfectly summarizes this choice. It was literally, it said at the bottom, basically, it was a 3-panel meme, homeschooling, sending your kids to school traditionally, or doing school online. And in all three, it just had the box of Kate McKinnon doing the like squinchy, like disgusted face. Yeah. Same exact picture for all three, because there isn't a good option right now. That's the real truth. Like we're in like a
put yourself in those shoes,
completely fucked up situation.
And and then you've got to still try and log in and go every day. Like think about like how easy it is as an adult to ignore an email.
Oh God, yeah.
And like
sure.
You're a child. You're 10. Like I'm not gonna respond to emails. Like
if I were 10 and I found out this Corona thing was happening and it meant that my summer vacation was getting extended, I would be the biggest pro like virus advocate on the planet as a 10-year-old. Like that would have been, I would have been out there like encouraging people to cough on each other. Like let's like keep this thing going as long as possible. Right. Because all I cared about at 10 was not having to go to school, so I could suck in some more of that glorious television we spoke of earlier.
I mean, you would think that, but like my 12-year-old boy, like he literally spends his entire life in the fucking basement on his phone and playing fucking some random game at the same time. Like
I would be doing that as a 10-year-old, dude. That would 100% be me.
He even wants to go back to school. He was like, God, that fucking sucked.
Really?
Yeah. But you got to remember, like, even that small amount of physical interaction that you have with your peers, like, means a lot.
It does.
Yeah, the hallway time is what it was. Like I could give a shit about being in class.
He didn't give a fuck about school, but just being around other people who are being forced to go through this fucking bullshit of listening to this fucking teacher. Like
not just talking to his friends on Minecraft or Fortnite or whatever he's playing.
Yeah, right. Like experiencing that pain with other people is a part of the school experience, because school sucks. Big black dick.
Well, we all got a fire drill, you know, like
yeah. So I mean,
experiences.
It's rough. Like in my instance, our district here is I would be sending my daughter to school 5 days a week. Her grade level is not required to wear a mask. So she's going to be in a room with like 20 other fucking kids at least. And the two grades that experience the most disease transmission, because they're in kindergarten and first grade and like have absolutely
so they put their fingers in everything.
Oh, they have no fucking clue what personal space means. Like my daughter is relatively well behaved. She can do the mask. She doesn't mind. You know what I mean? Like she's not your typical fucking 6-year-old. I'm lucky as fuck. But her still being around that, the fact that the shit can just literally cling to her clothes until she gets home, you know, fuck that. And on the other hand, my 12-year-old, who could honestly probably handle being in school all day, is going to be doing blended learning. So half the week he's going to be in school and half the week he's not.
Jesus.
Here's the really fucking crazy part about this shit. So the elementary school and the high school where I live are connected. We only have 3 fucking schools. It's a small little community. You know, we're at fucking boonies and shit. It's a farm community. The middle school is the only school, so grades 6, 7, and 8 are the only 3 grades that are separate from everybody else, like physically separate from everybody else. They said that the reason 6 through 12 is going to go to blended is so that way they could only focus on one school at a time.
Wow.
Are you fucking serious? Like, you people are educating my children, and you're saying that because half of the building is going to be rotating throughout the week, that only counts as one school? That's the bigger of the what?
Unless they're doing like a disinfectant team in between each day, which is like not gonna happen, because that's just too much.
Come on.
Have you seen those like self-cleaning like public toilets that they have in some major cities now? They have some in San Antonio.
That sounds amazing, really.
Yeah, it's got like a little thing.
They're like metal rooms on the street basically, and essentially I don't really know 100%. I've never seen one actually in process of being clean, but I know that at like some point they can essentially go into like cleaning mode, and it like just like sprays the crap out of the inside, like literally in this case it sprays down the inside and like sanitizes it heavily and all that good stuff. and it basically keeps it so that the issues that you would maybe commonly have in a major city with a public toilet are taken care of automatically. They just need to do that to the entire school. So, just like at nighttime, there's just going to be spigots that come out and like spray out solution. Everything's going to get soaked. Make sure you keep everything in drawers if you don't want it to
laminated.
be. Yeah, there you go.
That's fucking sounds so
they
disgusting.
Do it between classes, like.
And now the new pranks, like the senior prank, is you're going to tie up the freshmen to like the places in the room where you'll be sanitized.
That'd be great.
Haha, we made you clean.
Yeah, shit's all weird, man. But it's fun because,
fun.
I've known this for a long time, but life is fucking brutal, and people are starting to get to experience that. So for me, I'm kind of enjoying on a certain level this. Like, I've hitchhiked all over the country, lived in the fucking woods. I've been through crazy levels of life, and it's like part of my stand-up that I'm doing right now is like just bringing bringing light to the fact that life is fucked up everywhere for everybody.
Like on a global level.
Yeah. Like people think, racism only exists amongst white people to everybody else, which for the most part, yes, that is true. However,
that's true in America for the most part, but like
globally, no, globally it's even like that, man. Like people aren't aware of, like, the French put people who moved to France from Africa into ghettos, man. Like they had like years and years. I don't know if it's still like this because I kind of stopped following it, because after like 4 years of watching these poor people from Africa literally try and burn down Paris because of this shit, I was like, can't even affect that. That's in France. That has nothing to do with me. But like, yeah, they put them in ghettos. Like they basically they stopped one short of gassing and burning black people whenever they moved to France and Africa. Like they weren't allowed to become citizens. They could only get the most menial slave-ridden jobs, basically. Like it was fucked up, man. But I'm an albino. We have this issue in like a huge portion of Africa where they think we're magical creatures like fucking unicorns and shit, and like slaughter us and turn us into magic. No, it's cool. It's supposed to be funny. I think it's fucking hilarious. I
had no idea that was even a thing. So just this format of education was very very funny to me. I'm sorry.
It's like Tanzania witch doctors will cut off like albinos' penis and balls and shit, and like turn them into magical amulets you can wear around your neck for sexual healing. Like, it's like, what the fuck? I'm not a Marvin Gaye song. What the fuck? So I mean, like that happens right now in Tanzania, and that's just because everybody else is black and you were born white, and you're like, oh wow. I met another comic who says supposedly in Cambodia we're royalty, but even there I find us being discriminated against. Like it's, kind of like here in America, whenever we celebrated our first black congressman, in Tanzania, they celebrated their first albino government member. Like, that's fucking weird. So like I look at the world and I'm like, it's fucked up for everybody. Quit being pussies and just live your life. But everybody wants to bitch and complain and whine. And it's like, no, everything's fine. Everything is totally fine.
I don't know why I find albino racism hilarious.
Dude, I enjoy it. I think it's fucking hilarious because it's
like in a million years I would not have and I just learned that about you too. Which makes the name of your show make so much more sense.
Right. Albino, a rhino, like albinos in Africa.
I get it now.
Like that's
I'm on it.
No. Yeah, and when you
just thought you were a zoo enthusiast.
When you listen to the episode and you actually hear our theme song, it'll make even more sense.
Nice.
My wife still doesn't get it. She's like, why is that your show's theme song? And I'm like, I'm not gonna explain again. But life is fucked for everybody. So do what you do. Life is fine. Like we're working through this shit. Huh?
Unless you're the 0.1%.
unless you're the 0.1%, and their lives are even fucked up.
Well, and
Because
like, but just in like a whole
unless you're like a
Yeah.
rich, like a Lex Wexner guy, who's going to spend most of your life out of the news. You're super fucking rich.
Not Lex.
Whatever, Lex
You're thinking
Luthor, Lex
Luthor.
Wexner, same fucking guy. Les Wexner, what the fuck? I don't give a shit. Fuck that guy. Weird looking fucking lizard motherfucker. But I mean, like, those kind of guys, like, they stay out of the news. So, like, they're really the real 1%. You look like Hollywood and those kind of people, like, they're fucking crazy because their lives make them fucking crazy. And
you can't be famous from like the age of like 4 and like have a normal functioning brain. Like that's just not gonna happen.
You can't be superstar famous even if it happens to you as an adult and it not twist the fuck out of your brain.
Right, but at least you have a shot because you could remember what having a normal brain was like. But if you have that from as a kid, you just like you don't have a baseline.
No.
You can be so weird and not even realize that you're weird. Like you just like, oh, that's just how life is.
Very few of these people like ever readjust to normal life. Like,
dude, Macaulay Culkin kind of is. Like he's doing a podcast now, and like he's like, honestly, he seems to kind of have his like shit together to some extent.
Yeah,
fucking Justin Bieber. Who would have
really
ever thought?
Is Biebs like kind of doing normal life?
Biebs is just like a chill ass dude. Still makes music. Fucking living. He's like trying to get married to this chick and shit.
It's pretty crazy.
I mean, he's still the Biebs, but he's like, he's even said, he's like, what the fuck do you expect? You give a fucking 10-year-old $2.5 million fucking dollars. What do you think I'm gonna fucking do? It's like, I had no fucking clue what the fuck was going on. Right. I just knew everybody was like, you want a Lamborghini?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is, but it sounds cool.
I don't have a driver's license, but I mean, do you have it in yellow?
And like we're actually, our episode that airs on Friday is gonna be Scotty Schwartz. I'm super fucking excited for that shit because he was the kid who owned Richard Pryor in the movie The Toy.
What? Oh my god.
Yeah, bro, super excited because Pryor is one of my top 3 like all-time inspirations as far as
that sounds awesome, dude. Definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be so good. So I'm so excited. Like
be fun.
Oh, I'm so excited. It's gonna be hard not to nerd out.
If I may, how did you even make that connection? Like, how did that person end up in your podcast spectrum?
Just fucking making moves, man.
Hell
making
yeah,
moves, bro. Like
doing it.
Yeah. Well, the quarantine gave me the option to fucking gave me the time to sit down and really put some focus behind this. And like, I know, especially the older comics who can afford to, like, I ain't doing shit on my podcast. But I'm like, man, I'm not there yet. So I just went balls to the wall with it, like wrote all the fucking time, recorded
That's
a bunch
awesome,
of podcasts. Shit was good. So I mean, like, a lot of the networking has ended up working out. But like that kid,
that's like, something like I've just never even heard of him being a guest on a show. So I'm super excited to hear his insight.
Oh man, I can't wait to talk to him. But like, can you imagine being the kid? That kid, like, he's also the same kid that got his tongue stuck to the pole in The Christmas Story.
Oh whoa! Oh my god! Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like,
I triple dog dare you.
Like, but I'm 99% sure that his first movie ever was The Toy.
That's cool, dude. And like, what a huge like Richard Pryor is like, just, I mean, literally an icon of the industry.
Right. And I mean, like, in the 80s, to be in a movie that was like that blatantly about racism. I don't know if you've ever seen The Toy.
Yeah, it's a very controversial film, especially by today's standards.
Even still with today's standards, like, I don't even know, even though it was like meant to be like, this is literally what still happens. It's still fucking slavery. Like,
I feel like it was a very odd or awkward or just uncomfortable choice that, they chose an African American to play that role. Like, I'm not
sure. I think
it would have been
Richard
better.
had a lot to do with it.
Oh, really?
I believe so. Yeah. Like, I'm gonna spend.
And if that's the case, that's an interesting message, because like that completely changes the perspective of the message of that. I did not realize that.
Well, that was a lot of what Richard did.
Yeah.
You know, like
shed a light on the uncomfortable aspects of our history.
Right. I mean, and it kind of started with him and Mel Brooks talking about him doing Blazing Saddles. He obviously
another movie that just wouldn't be made today for
Oh,
what it's
no,
worth.
no, no. But like Richard was a part of that movie, even though he wasn't actually in that movie. And like
I didn't know that.
the only reason Richard Pryor wasn't the sheriff in Blazing Saddles was because the studio was like, no.
Really?
Yeah, and Mel Brooks wasn't really history of the world Mel Brooks yet.
He was still unknown for the most part.
He's still a pretty unknown dude,
Yeah.
you know? So he was like, man, Richard, sorry, I don't have any choice. I got to let this other guy do it. But they meshed in, you know, with each other for the next 3 or 4 movies after that. I think Pryor had wrote a lot of Blazing Saddles with Mel. Like,
dude. Now I'm even more intrigued to tune in to hear your conversation with that guy, because that's gonna be real fun to hear all about that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. I'm a huge Pryor fan. I'm actually, you know, we talked about writing a minute ago, and it's like I'm writing an article about the intersection of like the federal government, drugs, censorship, and Richard Pryor, Lenny Bruce, and Billie Holiday.
Oh, cool.
And it's gonna take for fucking ever. Like I'm almost considering making it a book just because it's gonna take so fucking long because it's all so intertwined and people don't realize. Like people like Richard, you know, Lenny Bruce, and like all the crazy fuckers that are out there that we're like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? They're also pushing us into this social world that we're in now.
Right.
Fucking weird, man. Weird how this shit all works out. But all these people would be canceled.
I feel like, I mean, it's weird to think about those things. Like, I think of George Carlin on that list as well, who I'm a big fan of. And just thinking about, you know, things that a lot of those comedians said, paralleling them to society and today, even though it's not the society they were talking about, it still fits so well in so many cases. Well, it's weird how timeless it is in a lot of ways.
It's crazy. Like you go to one of the biggest things, like one of the biggest people always talk about, like the DEA being formed and Harry Anslinger and, you know, Reefer Madness and all that shit. Most people don't realize that, like, it was all genuinely born out of racism. Right. And most of it was born way before the DEA ever even fucking started. It started with like some opium and heroin stuff around the turn of the 19th century. But the government didn't realize what they had until Harry Anslinger started the DEA and Billie Holiday pissed him off with a song called Strange Fruit. Which was basically about, you know, how lynching was so common in the South at that time that black people were basically fruit.
Ooh,
drive down the road and like see black people just hanging all over the fucking place, right?
That's not great.
So at the time that Billie made that song, she smoked a little reefer, drank a little bit, and, you know, had just started messing around with heroin. I can't remember exactly why. I think it was like a guy that she married. Her life was fucked up. Kind of like Richard's was. I mean, it was almost like a mirror of Richard Pryor's life, except she was a musician and he was a comedian. By the time Billie Holiday died, our government had gotten enough power through the DEA to literally walk into a hospital while these doctors were trying to save Billie Holiday's life because her liver was starting to fail from her abuse, and basically say, look, she's a drug addict. You can't give her any opiate or else we're taking you to jail. Which at the time, the effective way for them to get somebody off of an opiate addiction was methadone. That's how old methadone is. Motherfuckers don't even know that shit. Methadone's old as fuck. It
know
literally was created to get people off of heroin and morphine under doctor supervision in a fucking hospital. And the DEA could legally walk in and say, no, we're arresting this person for being a drug addict. It was illegal just to be a drug addict. Even if you were prescribed those drugs by a doctor, you could still get locked up for that shit, which primarily only happened to black people and Latinos and stuff. And they basically killed Billie Holiday. They murdered her because the doctors were like, we can't take her off of this methadone. They'll die. And the DEA said, too bad, and physically unplugged her from the shit.
Damn,
it was like, if you reconnect that, we'll take you to jail. Right? So that was for censorship. That was to control the population. That was such one little microcosm. And we're still going through this shit. They're trying to silence comics by fucking, creating this fucking cancel culture. That's the media, man.
More distractions, right?
Right?
More distractions.
Antifa was cool if they really were anti-fascist. They're fucking fascists.
I don't think they exist. I don't think there is like an actual Antifa. Like I think that is a construct
there
of the
totally
media.
is, because that's something for people to make money off of. Just like oh man, I might get canceled for saying this. Black Lives Matter as an organization has just become a way for people to make money. Like the individual people who support Black Lives Matter are like, yeah, Black Lives Matter, this is great. But you look at like some of the BLM stuff.
Oh, the Slack. If you're talking about like the Slack division that's coming from like some of the major corporations, I mean, like, I'm sorry, but every time I play Call of Duty, it reminds me that Black Lives Matter, and like that's sweet, but that's not like that's completely just waste of effort in terms of like that's not helping anybody's cause, if that's what you mean. Like I think the cause itself is still very worthy and has a lot of good people actually like flying its banner for the right purposes. But anytime there's money to be made, somebody will step in and try to make money with that cause.
Totally.
Yep. And just that act in and of itself dilutes the cause. And like people
what's like that joke, like where is what's her name, she did I think it's Kylie Jenner did the Pepsi commercial not too long ago, where like she stopped an entire protest and like police standoff by offering the cop a Pepsi. And it's just like that right there. I mean, that was prior to 2020. That was like a couple years ago. But like, I mean, that was just Pepsi seeing the future and being like, oh yeah, let's go ahead and get our toe in the door on this one.
Yeah. And it's so fake.
Super fake. Like so ridiculously fake.
It's like, yo, just sell your sugar water, man. We know you have no morals. You're a fucking company. Just quit fucking pretending. Like, no, that doesn't stand for all companies.
Dude. Like, I feel like a fair trade-off is you're gonna kill me and I'm gonna pay you for it with diabetes in exchange for money. But like, at least I'll have the benefit of talking with my friends about like your hilarious short film in the form of an advertisement.
Just remember that somebody really creative got paid a lot of money to do that. Okay.
Yes, I too would like to, have some of that money one day to buy more of your poison water.
Exactly.
I used to make commercials. I'll do whatever you want, man. Give me a break. I just made a commercial the other day. I don't agree with any of it, but
it paid you.
Yeah, but I mean, just because you made the commercial doesn't necessarily mean that like you stand behind it. Like, the problem.
That's the only way you're getting a piece of it. So no blame in that at all.
Yeah, I mean,
like I used to sell coasters to people, and I'm like, I don't give a shit what football team you like. I'll take your money.
Dude, I used to sell jewelry, and literally, I was selling you shiny rocks that are like You want to talk conspiracies, dude? Like diamonds aren't rare. I'll just go ahead and say it. Diamonds aren't rare, not even a little bit. You have been scammed. Yeah, sorry, society.
What's even crazy about that is it's been proven, like everyone knows that not only is it not a scam, but like the horrible shit De Beers puts people through to get those
It's
motherfucking
terrible.
things.
It's
Right? And
terrible.
everybody's
Man.
still like, oh, my
Yeah.
big ass. That my wife, like, thank God, was like, yeah, I don't really care. I'll go buy some ring from fucking Walmart.
Dude, it's literally the greatest marketing campaign in the history of marketing. Like, they knew they had a bunch of people coming back from war that were going to be eager to spend all that money that is waiting for them sitting in their pocket after, a victory.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, how can we get 2 months of everybody's salary? Got it.
And what's crazy is prior to that, they were like mostly industrial use only. You know what I mean? Like they would mine them and be like, "This shit's so hard, we could use it for this."
You can
or
make
this,
drill
or
bits out of them. Yeah.
Exactly.
You can make all kinds of abrasive stuff out of it.
Yeah, and then the Beers was like, I wonder if we fucking, but before De Beers, they were rare. Like the good ones. Mostly, it was just industrial shit. Fucking wonderful marketing world that we live in.
Oh yeah.
Where you don't know what the fuck is going on 3/4 of the time. So, hooray.
Half the time now, you don't even know you're being advertised to. Like, how many times have you watched a commercial and, like, halfway through it, you're like, what the fuck are they selling me? Like, just tell me what your product is already. This is just getting uncomfortable.
I like funny commercials.
Tell me how much to get out of these goddamn commercials. And
right.
I'll sign up. I'll take it.
I used to love commercials.
Fuck it.
Because I was a salesman for 18 years. So I enjoyed watching commercials, like trying to pick out, where their pitch is.
Pick out the good ones and not the crap
just in
ones,
general, even the crap ones, but like, how are they expecting people to think that like this is a good way to sell something, But like now, you watch a commercial and you're like, what the why is this woman naked in the rain? And then it's like Clorox bleach makes your shirt so white they feel this good, and you're like, what the fuck does?
Yeah.
Bud Light presents some shit like that.
Dude, Bud Light used to have solid, like, I miss the, like, old days where you'd have, like, rival companies, like, competing for the best commercials with each other. That's when you used to have, like, the, like, Real American Heroes, I think it was like a Budweiser pitch. And then, like, I think they countered that with, like, the Real Men, like, city council or whatever, or it was, like, Burt Reynolds and, like, other people sitting around the, the man table deciding what beer was manly. Shit like that was hilarious, dude.
What was the one where, what's up, man? What's up with you? Not much. Having a bud.
Or, like, if you go back far enough, what's up?
Yeah.
That's what, yep.
Yeah, and I used to have a shirt, that one of the parody shirts off of that was like 3 frogs, and they all had like toilet paper in front of them, and it said butt wiper.
Nice. That's solid parody right there.
Man, that was awesome. Well, Miles, we hit the hour mark, brother. It has been a great time hanging and talking with you. We certainly covered a gamut of interesting shit.
Thank you so much for having me, man. It was a great time
man.
chatting with you guys.
Is there anything you want to promote? Any possible tour dates?
Right now I'll just keep promoting my podcast. You can find that at Best Darn Diddley. That's Diddly. If you have ever liked The Simpsons, you'll probably like our show. And you can follow me online everywhere at Mr. Most Days Off.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Miles, and hopefully we talk to you again, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Good meeting you, man.